You've probably heard of Pablo Escobar's luxurious estates, complete with pools, helicopters, and private zoos. In fact, because of him, there are still around 100 hippos living in South America. More recently, El Chapo carried a diamond-encrusted pistol everywhere he went, and his initials were engraved on it. But it's not just these two. There are many others like them. When a big fish goes down, an even bigger one often rises from the shadows. This is the case with El Mencho, the most wanted man in Mexico. He began as an avocado farmer and became one of the country's most ruthless and wealthiest figures. In this video, we'll dive into his insane lifestyle, rise to power, and the rumors surrounding his downfall. Before we discuss the glitz and glamour of El Mencho's life, it's important to understand how he started. Unlike many Mexican drug lords of his generation who are either in prison or dead, Nemesio Ruben Oseguera Cervantes, better known as El Mencho, is still at large at 56 years old. There is currently a $10 million reward offered by the US government for information leading to his capture. Why the US government? El Mencho is blamed for a massive influx of narcotics into the United States, more than a third of all drugs coming from Mexico. His cartel, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, is now considered the second most powerful cartel in Mexico after the infamous Sinaloa cartel and is regarded as the bloodiest. El Mencho's operations have expanded across Mexico and several states in the US, solidifying his drug empire. Surprisingly, this empire began with avocados. Born on July 17, 1966 in Michoacán, Mexico's most avocado-rich region, El Mencho grew up in a poor family of avocado farmers. Like many notorious kingpins, he was born into tough economic circumstances, driving his desperation to escape poverty and gain the power his family never had. However, another key factor in his rise was his early exposure to cartel life and violence. At just a 5th grade education level, El Mencho left school and began working as a watchman on avocado fields. These weren't ordinary fields though. They belonged to the Milenio Cartel, one of Mexico's wealthiest cartels at the time. Cartels often infiltrate businesses, extorting owners and threatening families. For the Milenio Cartel, the avocado trade was profitable, but it also served as a front for trafficking drugs, such as marijuana, hidden in avocado shipments to the US. Even as a young teen, El Mencho was actively involved. As his role within the cartel grew, so did his exposure to the violence cartels used to maintain control. Initially, El Mencho worked as a plantation watchman, but he soon rose through the ranks to become a trafficker. Still, he harbored bigger dreams beyond avocados and working for another cartel. Seeking a fresh start, he moved illegally to Northern California. Once in the US, El Mencho became involved with heroin and methamphetamine gangs, gradually building his own network. He frequently traveled between the US and Mexico, often using aliases like Roberto Salgado or Miguel Valadez. At the age of 19, he was arrested by San Francisco police for theft and carrying a loaded firearm. This was just the first of his many encounters with the law. In 1989, he was arrested again in San Francisco for drug trafficking and deported back to Michoacán. Yet, he re-entered the US illegally just 3 years later. Eventually, he was caught again, this time on federal drug charges. In this instance, El Mencho and his older brother Abraham were caught conducting a heroin deal. El Mencho recognized that they were being set up and even warned his brother, a conversation that the police had recorded on a wiretap. 3 weeks later, both brothers were arrested. To save his brother from a life sentence, El Mencho pleaded guilty, receiving a 5-year prison sentence. He served 3 years at Big Spring Correctional Center before being released and deported back to Mexico. Now 30 years old, El Mencho had a revelation. Instead of quitting the drug trade, he decided to focus on operating from Mexico. He quickly rejoined the Milenio Cartel as a full-time member, initially working as part of their assassination squad, protecting the cartel's leader, El Lobo Valencia. When El Lobo was arrested in 2009, the Milenio Cartel began to fall apart. Around the same time, a rival gang, Los Zetas, took control of Michoacán. This marked a pivotal moment for El Mencho, as he observed that the most violent groups held the most power. Los Zetas introduced a new level of brutality to cartel life. Unlike traditional gang members, Los Zetas were made up of elite military deserters trained in the US. They brought military-style tactics to the drug war, with violence becoming not just a means to an end, but a goal in itself. Their reign led to a sharp increase in homicides across Mexico, with gruesome crime scenes becoming the norm. During this time, El Mencho moved to Guadalajara and formed an alliance with the Sinaloa cartel, led by El Chapo. Under this partnership, El Mencho managed the Sinaloa cartel's operations in Colima and Jalisco. By 2010, the Milenio cartel had split into two factions, La Resistencia and Los Matazetas, the Zeta killers, the latter led by El Mencho. Following a bloody internal war, El Mencho emerged victorious, consolidating power and forming the CJN. Unlike other cartels that rely on bribery and business deals, El Mencho's CJN expanded through sheer violence and terror. The cartel militarized its operations, with members donning military uniforms and carrying high-powered firearms, including 50-caliber sniper rifles. Their tactics were simple: attack first, kill, or be killed. CJN didn't just target rival cartels. They also attacked law enforcement and civilians, cementing their reputation as one of the most dangerous criminal organizations in Mexico. With this militarized approach, El Mencho built one of the most feared and powerful cartels, with his reach extending far beyond Mexico's borders. His reign of terror and violence continues to this day, with no signs of slowing down. In April 2015, the CJNG Jalisco New Generation cartel ambushed dozens of police officers, trapping them in a corner. The officers were continuously shot at, resulting in the deaths of 15 officers. Another 14 officers were killed in Anguilla, and it was all caught on camera. In the late 2010s, the government declared the CJN as Mexico's #1 enemy. The Jalisco New Generation cartel escalated the conflict, even shooting down a military helicopter with a rocket-propelled grenade. Before this, no one had dared to go after the military. The helicopter that was shot down was believed to be tracking the cartel leader El Mencho, and he couldn't allow that. He was constantly surrounded by his personal army, with people infiltrating the police and alerting him when he was being tracked. According to the DEA, El Mencho is extremely cunning. His violence is often used as leverage in negotiations with the government and politicians. They create chaos to force local politicians to negotiate, using extreme violence as a bargaining chip. It appears there's no end to El Mencho's lust for power. If the authorities give in to his demands, he will militarize further and make the CJNG even more powerful. If they refuse, he will continue to kill officers and civilians until they comply. Today, even the Mexican military lives in constant fear of CJN attacks. At the end of 2022, The Guardian reported 26,000 murders in Mexico. The last few years have seen record-setting numbers of homicides. In 2021, there were 94 homicides per day. Violence is at an all-time high, and El Mencho is responsible for a large portion of it. Sources indicate that El Mencho is solely responsible for drug trafficking operations in the states of Jalisco, Colima, and Guanajuato, where he has created a base for methamphetamine production and trade. Internationally, the CJN is rumored to have ties with criminal groups in the United States, Latin America, Europe, Asia, and Africa. The CJN has become one of the most profitable criminal gangs in Mexico's history, and their methods are, to say the least, despicable. This is the grim context of El Mencho's wealth. According to government estimates, his organization is worth around $50 billion in total assets. Not only is this a staggering amount, but El Mencho continues to grow his empire. One key to his success is his ability to adapt to market and consumer changes. Initially, the CJNG focused on methamphetamine production, but as consumer demand shifted, El Mencho moved into heroin production. Today, the CJN is the main distributor of fentanyl, which has surpassed heroin as America's deadliest banned drug in recent years. Fentanyl, an opioid 100 times stronger than morphine, was initially created as a painkiller for medical use. However, when it became a street drug, it caused more deaths per year than any other drug in the US. Fentanyl is incredibly cheap and powerful, leading to rapid addiction. Unlike heroin, which might hold someone over until the next day, fentanyl causes withdrawal within hours, leading to multiple daily doses. Approximately 1% of fentanyl users will die, highlighting the immense human toll of El Mencho's drug empire. He's not just killing rival cartel members, but also police officers, judges, their families, and the hundreds of thousands who overdose on the drugs his cartel produces and smuggles. Here's a surprising fact. El Mencho was once a police officer. After being deported to Mexico at age 30, he briefly joined the local police forces of Cabo Corrientes and Tomatlan in Jalisco. However, around this time, he was also exploring his options in the Milenio cartel, having known only a life of crime before. From his time as a police officer, El Mencho gained a unique advantage: extreme discipline. Unlike many drug kingpins, he avoids drugs and alcohol, exercising regularly and maintaining a strict lifestyle. He rarely appears in public, preferring to stay in remote, highly secured compounds surrounded by his personal army. This discipline extends to the way he organizes his cartel's army. CJN soldiers are trained with military precision, using high-caliber weapons and even makeshift tanks known as monstruos. The CJN learned many of their tactics from the hyper-violent Los Zetas cartel, but have taken their methods to new extremes. The cartel uses brutal violence, including acid baths, hangings, decapitations, and even cannibalism, all of which have been normalized within their ranks. Some of these atrocities are even posted on social media to send a clear message: this is what happens if you cross the CJN. Despite the violence, El Mencho has managed to amass a fortune. In 2019, Kyle Morey, the head of the DEA team hunting El Mencho, estimated his net worth at over $500 million, with some sources suggesting it could be as high as $1 billion. However, much of this wealth is hidden in cash across Mexico, making it difficult to track. Unlike El Chapo and other famous drug lords, El Mencho prefers to remain hidden. Despite running a billion-dollar enterprise, he doesn't flaunt his wealth by dining in expensive restaurants or driving flashy cars. His low profile is a key factor in avoiding capture. However, this doesn't mean he hasn't accumulated vast amounts of wealth. Authorities have seized a number of his properties, including more than 100 Japanese restaurants. But wealth for El Mencho is secondary to power. There have been many attempts to capture El Mencho, but each time he has managed to evade authorities. In August 2012, Mexican federal police responded to a tip that a crime cell was present in the area. A shootout ensued, killing 6 CJN gunmen and several police officers. It was rumored that El Mencho had been captured during this operation, but the Mexican government later confirmed he was not in custody. Since then, the authorities have never gotten so close to arresting him. The CJN has grown increasingly sophisticated in its efforts to protect El Mencho, using tactics like blocking highways with burning vehicles to delay law enforcement. In March 2015, CJN gunmen ambushed a federal police convoy, killing 5 officers and 3 civilians. This attack was reportedly to protect El Mencho, who was in the area at the time. A few days later, one of El Mencho's closest associates, Roberto Acevedo Cardenas, also known as El Gringo, was killed in a shootout with federal police. In response, El Mencho ordered further attacks on the Mexican federal police, leading to more deaths. In 2023, authorities were still unsure of El Mencho's whereabouts. It's believed he is hiding in the mountains, constantly surrounded by his personal army. His inner circle consists of mercenaries with military training, making it nearly impossible to apprehend him. Interestingly, there have been rumors about El Mencho's health. In 2020, it was reported that he was suffering from kidney disease and had built his own private hospital for treatment. By 2022, unconfirmed reports suggested he had died in the hospital after a respiratory arrest. While this hasn't been officially confirmed, some cartel members have already started to desert, believing their leader to be dead. The big question now is whether the CJN will crumble without El Mencho, or if the organization is strong enough to choose a new leader. As of 2023, the cartel appears to be splitting into smaller factions, each waging war on rival cartels and even among themselves. One thing is certain, El Mencho's reign of terror has left an indelible mark on Mexico. Even if he is dead, the legacy of fear, violence, and destruction he built will take years to undo. His empire may be in jeopardy, but the damage he caused is far from over. As always, Thanks for watching. What do you think about El Mencho? Are the rumors of his death true, or are they just a ploy by those trying to climb the cartel ladder? Let us know in the comments below. And before you go, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. Goodbye, and see you soon.